Welcome to the Vitality Shift podcast for chiropractors. I'm your host, Dr. Brandi MacDonald, author of the best-selling book, The Underdog Curse. Weekly, we will be interviewing amazing chiropractors from around the world, finding out how they made their vitality shift. If you're a chiropractor that either wants to just move your practice away from treating pain and conditions, or if you just want to stay inspired, this podcast is for you. For more information on past shows, please visit www.drdonmacdonald.com, and I hope you enjoy the show. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Vitality Shift podcast for chiropractors. This is Dr. Brandi MacDonald, your host, and today I get to take another trip across the pond and go visit Ireland. And our next guest, we've had the pleasure of working with him quite a bit over the last couple of years, and we just recently finished doing a 90-day our mentoring program with him one-on-one, and he had some really cool breakthroughs, and I thought it would be really cool to share with some of our listeners, because always when people are getting advice or looking for leadership, they always are looking for the things to do. But a lot of times we already know all the things to do, but there's something inside that's kind of holding us back from doing the things that we know that we should do because it's who we are. And John Osborne, Dr. John Osborne, who we've been working with for a while, has had some really cool breakthroughs this year. And I thought I would bring him on and just kind of say, hey, what are 3 internal obstacles that you really help to kind of overcome? And maybe this will help spark our listeners just to kind of say, hey, maybe there's something holding them back. So I don't necessarily need to learn more information, or I don't necessarily need to get another strategy, or I need, but maybe if I can kind of dig deep inside and help kind of unwind some of those internal patterns, it might affect all areas of our life, because it's like a lot of times we think we can segment our life, but really everywhere we turn around, there we are. So I want to welcome John. Welcome back to the podcast. This is now you're on solo, because you're on with your lovely wife probably about a year and a half ago on the podcast, and now we get you all by yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Don. Yeah, no, great to be back, and looking forward to sharing what I've learned, which is a lot. And I think even in just prepping for this, I think you've kind of hit it on the head. I kind of was looking for help, but didn't know what help I needed. But I kind of knew I didn't have a procedure problem or a systems problem or a people problem in terms of my staff. And in order for the practice to shift or to move or to move forward, I knew I was the problem. But at least I knew I had to change. But I didn't know where to start. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know so I kind of went into it, this 90-day program kind of blind, and hoping that yourself and Brandi would be able to pick up on some things or shed some light on things or guide me. And it certainly worked out that way.
Yeah, it's funny because the worst thing is when it's you're like, oh man, can't it be a procedure?
Yeah, it would be easier, wouldn't it? I guess you only know what you know. And when you're in the middle of it, and for so long too, because I'm in practice over 20 years now, so it's I was beginning to think maybe this is as good as it gets, and. Mm-hmm. Well, listen, it's not, because there's always room for improvement. And the last 90 days or the 90-day program would really kind of move things along and shifted things on, which has been terrific.
So let's just give a little pre-frame, because I don't know if people have a chance to listen back to your whole story, but just maybe go back to when you started doing the vitality shift, and just kind of what were some of the key points that you learned from that, and then we'll go into those obstacles, because once you get it's kind of, those are a lot of the tools. Learning how to communicate and learning how to measure function, improving function. And maybe just kind of talk a little bit about that progression first, and then we'll go into those obstacles.
God, it seems so long ago now, which is probably, it's probably 3 or 4 years. So I think I think in my head, I'm very mechanical anyway, and we'll get to me about me being in my head a lot. So, I'm very analytical. So, kind of technique wise, and getting in, really trying to figure things out when someone's on the table I'm happy there, so to speak. So, so the vitality shift in terms of the testing, that kind of spoke to me. I've just give me more data, give me more information, something to keep me in my head that just resonates with me. So. I can never have enough information, So I think, but applying that then to the person in front of you, rather than just being thinking of terms, because I was very much in a pain based mindset and kind of a relief mindset. So kind of shift into that kind of that vitality mindset or salutogenic mindset was a challenge for me. And so doing the test is one thing, but then actually integrating that in practice and then using that to gauge someone's care plan or guide them along that road to recovery or into that kind of vitality mindset and being proactive with their health was certainly a challenge, and which took time. I think anything I tend to do in the past, you do it for a bit at the start, and then you kind of start slowly gravitating back to how you used to do things, a bit like people their adjustments. So I think with the vitality shift and then the vitality engine really just kept us in that mindset. And again, when I'm practicing with Marie, my wife, she was doing the program as well, so we could kind of banter back and forth and talk about what we're doing and kind of keep each other on track.
That's cool, yeah. And so, like I said, it's funny because sometimes, and I noticed that too. Sometimes in the past, I've bought lots of programs and you got lots of information, and then it feels like you kind of get bogged down in implementing it. So let's talk a little bit about one of the first obstacles that you, I know you're going to do probably 3 here or ish or whatever we're going to talk about. So.
Well, the first one was realizing I needed help and being open to that.
That's a big one. You can't have someone that's not open to it, right?
I think and Brandi Dublin when you were here a couple of years ago, and we got really well, and I thought, you kind of maybe hit it off. That you guys would see whatever was blocking my so maybe you'd call me on it. I knew certainly Brandi would, and
yeah.
So I think the first one was, I think the big thing for me, because we use Voxer and I could have had access to you every day and I could just message you. So when it came to doing a new patient and then doing all my testing and actually doing my examination, and then I could actually present that case to you guys. So, where you kind of get locked onto certain things in a case or something, you lock onto it and you can't see the wood for the trees.
Right.
So by presenting those things to you and you guys having just a different set of eyes on a case, and how quickly you guys picked up like the posture changes that I wasn't picking up on. And honestly, I think I'd got to the point where I was getting bogged down on not getting the result I thought I should, when I was actually, once I had all the information in front of me and you guys kind of were telling me this is what's going on here, or this is how that you guys see it, realizing my expectations of what I could do were just totally unrealistic. So what I was thinking I'd get in 3 months were probably 3 years, and then always being disappointed or always kind of berating myself that God, I'm crap, or I'm not good at this. And so I don't know if you remember, I think that first month we sat down and we kind of went through old cases, and then like 2 or 3 reevaluations later. And when you got these results are great, John. They're and I couldn't see it, So in that was a real eye opener for me in terms of the vitality test, in terms of kind of integrate them all, because I might isolate them in terms of look at posture is one thing, the SMG is one thing, maybe just not putting the whole picture together, because I was doing it a certain way for so long that I was just stuck that way. So that really kind of opened my eyes and thought, okay, I'm doing this right. I'm just looking at it differently, or I need to look at things a little bit different way.
Well, and I think that's a great point because for one, and that's the one thing about the vitality shift, is that most chiropractors don't have enough measurements to measure improvement. And it's funny because they're always trying to get away from treating just pain. But if you're only doing that with orthopedic testing and your case history, that's the only thing you're measuring, right? So either you're disappointed because they don't feel better, or they feel better and then they just leave because you've never measured anything else. So you're kind of hooped both ways.
Well, I guess people were staying with us, and they because I was getting into that value later. I had all data, and I wasn't kind of seeing that people were actually staying under care. I was just thinking I should be doing better. It was never good enough in my own head. But now that I've kind of a few months at this and really looking at things, it just takes so much pressure off when you're not expecting, ridiculous expectations. So
Brandi always has a line in her office, and she goes, for one, you're not 19, and for two, I'm not God. So I think that's so important, though, because I remember the time when we were talking to you, and you were like, John doesn't think he's getting good results. Like you're thinking you needed to change your technique, you needed to do something totally different.
Yeah. Or I need to do something else. Yeah.
Yeah. And in reality, you were getting good results. You weren't kind of able to pick up on the little subtleties, because I always say to people, like, if we have a journey of 100 miles, we want to have mile markers maybe every mile or two, so that we know we're kind of going in that direction. But if you kind of get into the journey and your only mile marker to measure is 100 miles, and you're in 10 miles and you're feeling discouraged, there's a long time till you get a next mile marker. So and if you're thinking you should have got there faster, it's frustrating. So that's why I always say we become the celebrators of the micro milestones. And I think that's what, as chiropractors, we do it all the time, is we are celebrating the micro milestones that the people aren't noticing. And that's the reason they're under chiropractic care, is because their body awareness is so low, that under chiropractic care, we help to increase that awareness, but we also got to get the mind aware of the small improvements too. So I'm always celebrating, hey, remember this didn't move this good, or feel the tone here, or look at this change. And then they're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Right. But if we're not, I'm not only bringing it to the attention of the practice members, but then also bringing it to our reevaluations, it does get frustrating.
Yeah, I think I got to the point where some of the reevaluations with some people I was kind of nearly dreading, or kind of very anxious about, or feeling a bit nervous about doing it, because I felt like, this isn't going the way I thought it would. Or so now I have to say that the reevaluations, it's just a casual conversation, and we're on the journey together. This is how well you're doing. This is where we're at. This is what I'm expecting to happen next, and it's so much pressure off.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know. I think that's great. What was your second obstacle that you had?
Second one was, it's kind of second and third. So was that self-awareness in my own state. So I always thought like I was an open book, wore my heart on my sleeve, and was very connected. And yeah, that's not the case. That certainly wasn't the case. And I think I was kind of an open book as long as I chose what pages were open.
Yeah, totally.
But when we started working through things, I don't know if you remember when I started being more aware of my own physiology, and I was kind of getting verging on panic attacks or palpitations, or my sleep went off the rails a little bit, and I was going, what is going on? I was actually starting to think, am I really sick, or is there something going on here? And it was all that we did that work around, we called it Big John, Little John, that past experience had gears you up, puts you in fight state. And that blew the doors open for me. I think that was really turning point, which was quite emotional looking back on things in your life and thinking that, God, you act like a child sometimes, not, in terms of your behavior, but your physiology. You just go back to that stress state. And that's shown up in practice, and I would never, ever have thought that would show up in practice. So I would micromanage everything, try and control everything when the book was very stacked or the diary was very stacked. And I knew I had an hour where I can't fall behind. I would kind of panic, talk a lot more, or I would check a lot more and totally set myself behind. Right. And then that would then just kind of double down then the next time it happened. And then the next time to the point nearly where I didn't really want to be busy. Or I didn't want to stack an hour or two, so being conscious of, and even before the shift, what's my state like going in today? Because I would even get kind of a bit wound up before the shift, and I've got a busy shift this afternoon, and nearly not look forward to it. So and being able to calm myself then, that obstacle, overcoming that was actually going, relax, calm down, take a few deep breaths, or do whatever you need to get set for the afternoon, be prepped, and then just go in and enjoy it, but be conscious that the more I kind of nearly got out of my head and was there with the patient in front of me, or the person in front of me, the more time sped up.
Right.
So that was huge. That was a real turning point in terms of, that's when we really kind of started seeing the practice really pick up. But also I start more enjoying things a lot more as well.
Well, and I think too, that's one of the frustrations I think chiropractors have often is it's funny, they say they want to see more people and serve more people, but their internal state actually sabotages it, like you said, because they almost panic. And then when you panic, you slow down. And when you slow down, you get behind. And when you get behind, you're definitely not in an attractive energy zone.
No. Because I'd look at the diary and see who's coming in, and then you always got those patients that are going to be a little bit slower than others, or they need a bit explanation, and I'd be thinking, okay, I hope they don't show up, and then I can stay on track and really micromanage this way. And again, sure, the phone might ring and they might cancel, and then you'd be going happy days.
You're excited that they didn't show up.
That's not the mindset you should have. No, that's not how you're going to see more people, and that's not how you're going to be more efficient. So, that was. But if you'd told me I had in advance that I was self-sabotaging, I would have, no, I wouldn't have believed you. It's just very interesting to be able to then see things that you're doing that you've no idea you're doing, or no idea you're acting a certain way.
So John, how did you do, to get that realization? Because like I said, at the beginning, I remember too, because we said you're like, how could this mindset affect my practice? Or how could this affect my practice? What was your awakening to that? Did you have to just kind of go with the flow first and then just see the results? Or how did you kind of go from, I don't believe you that my state would affect my practice or sabotage me, to understanding that? Was it the results?
I don't think we verbally said it that way, but it's kind of nearly how it played out. But I was starting to feel it in my body. I was starting to feel the tightness on the chest, or my breathing quicken, or my heart kind of nearly miss a beat. That type of, and thinking, what's going on? Because I was very disconnected from myself. I had no idea. And when that started showing up after kind of realizing how my body reacts to stress, or how it reacts to that, and then nearly making the connection that, okay, I'm feeling something, so there's something going on here, and then kind of a moment to figure out what's happening here, what's the trigger here, and then I guess just accepting that this is how you're reacting. This is this is just your fight-flight mechanism, your stress response, and just calming myself down and saying, well, if you don't address it, you can't move forward. So. But I would say I would love to say it was all an all or nothing thing. It was just a little bit of a flutter here, or a little bit of an anxious moment here, and then you distract. It's very easy to distract yourself and just move on and get on with things. So I think just being very, very much in the present, and being aware going into the shift, but also how I was in the shift, once I was starting aware of that, just making little changes, and then the results happening, then realizing at the end of the shift that God, it wasn't that busy this afternoon, and then realizing it was the busiest day you've had in 6 months, so it's that's all the proof I need. So I was full in then,
And just to give the listeners a heads up, I seem to remember when you first started doing that, it was a little bit disconcerting. When you started paying attention to your physiology, maybe you could walk some listeners through that, because sometimes you feel almost, I think sometimes you feel a little bit worse before you feel better when you increase that awareness. Yeah.
There's a vulnerability to it. I felt, it's a very uneasy feeling. It's not pleasant.
No.
And it's certainly not pleasant. I've kind of come to embrace it now, and it doesn't freak me out, but it did freak me out at the start. Because I'd be a great sleeper. The house could be burgled and Marie would be up downstairs and I'd be still fast asleep. But I was waking up during the night, and with feeling anxious or feeling stressed, or feeling my heart racing and things like that. And probably because we were doing some of the deep work and maybe it was on my mind and, things like that. That was very uncomfortable and very unsettling, I would say. But having said that, I kind of quickly got to the point, okay, we're obviously scratching the right scratch. This is working. This is having an effect. So let's just work through it. But it was difficult. I admit, I wasn't. It was a challenge, but I was in for 90 days, so I figured. I think we're about 6 or 7 weeks into the program at this stage. So, and I knew there was no hiding. So
yes, you might as well do it.
Great. That's how mentors work. They kind of help you through it. So, and I would very much normally keep my feelings to myself. I wouldn't really reach out for help. But the fact that I'd Voxer, and I just got into the habit of checking in with you guys every single morning. As soon as I got up, I checked in and let you know how I was feeling or how the afternoon. By the time I finished my morning shift, you guys were only waking up then. So that really helped, having that. Because if I didn't message you, I knew damn well you guys would message me, to check in. So
they're like, where the hell are you?
Exactly. Yeah. So it was. I always felt it was best to get in there first. So it was just got into a routine. I must admit, I miss it. I knew, now we're past that. I do. It was like you guys in practice with me, which is, because when you work on your own, it is nice to have some banter and actually just some dialogue about what's going on in the moment. And I think that was a great thing that if they showed up, I could message you guys straight away. And I knew you guys would back to me within the hour or two, depending on the time of the day. So rather than getting stuck and being stuck for weeks on end, probably, it was literally being addressed straight away, which is, is superb.
That's cool. Well, I think, and this is the biggest thing for the listeners, is that when you start to do this awareness work, it's going to feel uncomfortable, but that's okay. And this is kind of like when a practice member starts chiropractic care, right? Sometimes they're going to feel extra things they haven't felt before as they get more movement in their spine and they get more proprioception to their brain. And if we can pre-frame it, because I think we pre-framed it for you a little bit, that like if it's uncomfortable, you're going to be okay. And I think that's something to be aware of, because I think if somebody was going to do that inner work and they didn't know that, they might stop because they're like, this sucks. Like I feel anxious, or I feel this is uncomfortable. I'm going to stop. So it's good to have that pre-framed knowing going into it.
Yeah. And I'd done a lot of that inner work before. But this was specifically tailored around the practice, and it really kind of helped move things through, and I didn't think it would be not that I knew it was going to be a mindset in how I presented or how I showed up at practice was going to make the difference. But I didn't realize kind of that I was spending a lot of time in practice in that stress state, in that fight-flight state. And in my head, more importantly, I was just very much in my head that I would be disconnected from the person on the table.
Right.
And you're not going to build relationships that way.
Yeah. And I think too, I'm just not as effective as adjusting either when you're in that stress state. So it's just, once you get into that growth connective state, I think we're just more effective. And I think that's why when you're in that state, you can, when you're seeing someone, you can be a lot quicker about it because you're more efficient. And if you're not, you're like second guessing and analyzing everything. So that's why I think it even takes longer to see practice members. I've noticed that too. If I feel off, it takes me longer to do the same amount because you're not in that flow, right?
Yeah. So again, with my, because I was mainly activator methods kind of technique. So it's like there's like 101 tests you could do on somebody. So, and when I was in that state, it was like check. Dudes just couldn't make a decision of what. So just keep checking, and then realizing I better hurry up here. I better do something. But also, like again, as time went on, I started doing a bit more manual adjusting as well around the hierarchy. So that those that would have been around the would be a 2 or a 3 or something like that. I'd start bringing in some manual adjusting, which I hadn't done before. And now feeling, I'm definitely feeling the spine a bit more, and really getting a kind of a more alive feedback on really what's going on, rather than my checks just tell me what to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then because we always say that's the difference between like following just a recipe. We're not making muffins. And it'd be like, we have a TV show called Master Chef. And I don't know if you guys have it, but the chefs just basically get a box of ingredients and they have to just create something.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we are with because everybody's different. Everybody has a different set of ingredients. Everybody has different stressors. Everybody has different history. Everybody has different current environment. And so it's like we're kind of creating a masterpieces with each person. And the recipes are great to learn, right? That's so like what we did in chiropractic school is you're learning the protocol to go through. But also I like to have like kind of part protocol, part your innate and your instinct and your feeling to kind of match those together.
Yeah, I think with past coaches, and I've done a lot of coaching over the years, is I remember one of them said to me, you need to master your technique. And it was like, that was the one technique, and they put me onto it. And those beliefs, you don't you just latch onto them, you don't change them. And I just felt like, no, if I stick with the one technique, they'll expect the same thing every time. And you have these beliefs in your system, in your head that, you can't change things. And, but the person on the table doesn't care as long as they're getting results and things are moving forward. They don't care what you do or how much time, how little time you spend with them.
Right. And I always think back of who created the technique. And how did they create it? And what they did is they learned all the different techniques and then they integrated it into their own soul. Yeah. And then they created their technique. And so all the masters created their own technique. And I think as a chiropractor, the goal to be a master is creating your own technique, but standing on the shoulder of giants, learning those protocols, but then just integrating it through yourself.
Yeah, totally agree.
I think that's huge. So what's your third obstacle that you...
I think the last one was actually the easiest, which was literally attaching meaning to my goals. Which I had done before, but they hadn't really meant anything to me because I was unhappy with what I was doing, or I was unhappy with everything that came before that. So when I figured out what my values were then, and then kind of attaching meanings around those, I realized because myself and Marie we practice the same practice together. We don't practice together. We're not there at the same time.
Right.
Her values are completely different from mine, and her goals are completely different from mine. And when we used to try and do everything for the practice and have the same things for everything. So when we divided it up as well, and individual, you're motivating yourself. I'm not motivated by Marie's values, and I'm not motivated by her. Even though I try and get her to do my goals a little bit. So
yeah, it's always easier if people help us do our own goals.
Yeah, it'd be much easier if I married someone that had the same goals as I had. So, but attaching the meanings to those goals and then working through things, and obviously when you're getting results and then your goals are being met, it's just fuel to the fire, and it's just everything was in alignment then, and it's that I think that brought a lot of the joy back into why I'm doing what I'm doing, but also when I felt that, yes, I was doing it the right way. Yes, the results were coming. Yes, once I tweaked those few things around the vitality testing and my expectations, and that I felt comfortable what I was doing was the right thing, and just that built that self-confidence and that awareness that the goals was just the last piece of the puzzle. And I think I'm quite analytical. So in terms of the stats and stuff, I used to monitor like religiously and spend hours going over them and looking back and things like that. And I probably the last year, even though I was recording things, I wasn't really looking at them. I tried to kind of distance myself from them because they really weren't changing much. They'd hit that plateau when things hadn't changed. So, now I look at the stats at the end of the week. I don't really want to see what they're like at kind of midweek. I might look at the end of the month and see how things are going, just to know that I'm kind of on track. But set realistic goals as well, but also just attaching the meaning to those for me was kind of huge.
All right, John. Well, that was great. Maybe just for everybody, you can review those three things again those three obstacles that you overcame.
So the first obstacle obviously was identifying that or realizing, yes, I had to change in order for the practice to move forward or the practice to change, which is how I end up kind of getting in contact with you guys or starting the program. But the integrating the vitality test was the big one in terms of, well, they were integrated, but in terms of how I was looking at the tests and how that applied to the care plan in terms of how I'd kind of formulate that care plan. And really what showed up was that I was expecting things to change much quicker than they would, and then feeling like, I guess, that I wasn't doing a good job, or that I wasn't a good chiropractor even.
Right.
So having you guys look at my cases with me, and just having a fresh pair of eyes on them and giving me your perspective on them just really kind of focused me in terms of, okay, when I was looking at those vitality tests all together, yes, it was much easier than to formulate the plan, realize what healing archetype people are, things like that, and then being able to make the recommendations accordingly that were going to set me up to succeed, and it also even set up to that people actually started care because they actually believed what I'm saying, you know.
Totally.
Second thing then was the big thing really, which was the breakthrough for me, is that self-awareness of my own state and realizing when I was stressed or when I was kind of out of balance and not in and being in my head. For me, it was very much, I would just gravitate. I'd be in my head and not be my best self kind of when I was practicing. And I looking back on that, I think it was that micromanaging everything and trying to control everything, which is just exhausting.
Right.
So and also limiting, because I was sabotaging then as well, because I didn't want to be busy, but not realizing that that's what I was doing. So that once that was, and that's, you know, it's not that it's fixed; it still happens, but I catch myself now.
Right.
And that Joe Dispenza book, actually, we didn't mention that actually. Just a quick side note was that break habit of being yourself, and that awareness of that gap of like when your physiology is reacting that way, and then rather than immediately reacting a certain way, that gap, that space where you can actually recognize, you know, I can choose to react this way, or I can or I can choose a different option. That was so if anyone hasn't read that book, read that book. That's superb. But that just being self-aware, and using that then to realize, okay, I'm out of state here, and I need to bring myself back more into that kind of parasympathetic state. Really, really helped, and sped up practice, sped up adjusting, sped up kind of, you know, everything.
And efficiency.
Yeah, absolutely, which is huge. Yeah. So, and then the last one then was then attaching meaning to my goals, so they're aligned with my values, which was kind of more the icing on the cake. It wasn't a huge obstacle, but it never really worked for me before, and I didn't understand why. Purely because I didn't really know my values that well, and also I was borrowing other people's values and doing things what I thought they should be rather than really what really mattered to me.
I was just going to say, one of the coolest things that we've had the opportunity to do is work with both with you and Marie over the last several years, and this is very similar to when I was first in practice with my sister. When you have two people that are running a practice, you can kind of no one can be accountable. Like you can actually set stuff up, but no one actually gets anything done because everything is all mixed smashed together, and so it's funny because it's like over the last year or so, we've helped Marie get her own identity, and then you get your own identity, and then you both have your own goals, and you both have your own values, and you both have your own different meanings. And so we spent the first amount of time working with you, almost separating the practice, and then at the end, now that you were strong on your own, bringing it back together again.
Exactly. Well, you know what?
That's pretty cool.
What I was going to bring up, and I decided not, for some, I don't know why I decided not to, but it was that myself and Marie are on the same page. Even though we have separate practices and we do things slightly different, we're completely on the same page.
Yeah.
So it's, and even the conversations we have at home, and, you know, interesting this morning, that we were getting the kids to go to school this morning, and our eldest is just turned 14, so he's a little bit absent-minded and not the most organized. And he pushes my buttons a little bit. And his bag wasn't ready, and he put, it was end of term today, end of school. He's on his summer holidays from today, and he had to clear out his locker and put all his books in his bag, and he hadn't got the space. So I said, okay, take those books out and make sure you clear the bag out so that you've got an empty bag going into school. And he just threw the books down on the ground, and it was a mess. And the books they left there 2 weeks ago were still there, and I could just see my buttons being pressed. And in the background, Marie just she was behind him, and she just mouthed to me, "Breathe." Just, but she could totally see my physiology was starting to change. So I didn't lose it.
So you just caught yourself. Eh? You just could feel it.
But I caught myself as she was catching me. So it was just really interesting. The two of us are so much in sync, and
that's awesome.
She knows me so well. But I'm now getting to know myself so well now that we're the two of us at the same time. I kind of had to say to her, "Okay, I've got it. I'm on it. Which is going to make life happier for everybody."
Totally. It's okay. I'm not going. It's like it'd be like Bruce Banner and the Incredible Hulk, right? You just caught it before you got too mad, where you kind of busted out the green skin and blow out of your clothes and get all mad, right? Yeah. That's awesome. Well, so just in closing, there might be somebody out there listening that might feel like they're similar to you. What kind of words of advice would you have as far as, people kind of looking inward to seeing if they can maybe kind of identify what their obstacles are and then hopefully help get them overcome?
The longer I was in practice and the longer things weren't changing, because the things have been on a plateau for a long time. And getting to the point, I think for me was if you're getting to the point where you think this is as good as it gets, or it's just me, maybe I'm not going to be that guy that sees that number, or can have this bigger practice, or whatever it might be for whatever your goals are.
Right.
Nearly to the point that you think are you broken, or are you, maybe this is just as good as it gets? It's not. You just need help. You just need someone the right person, the right people to help guide you. And as I said, I've done so much coaching in the past with pretty much everybody, and you never know when that breakthrough is going to be, but just you need help, and you need someone to help you with it. Because I kept on thinking, if I haven't figured it out by now, maybe I'm not going to figure it out. Maybe it kind of got to that point. I think I'd said that in my head, but not actually said it out loud, because I didn't want to admit it, because I didn't want to give up. I think if there's anything I've got, it's persistence. But it's if you guys really resonate with me, and if the vitality stuff resonates with someone and they feel they're on the right track but they're still stuck, you just need to dig in a bit deeper, or maybe ask a different question, or actually reach out and look for help. And certainly this 90-day program really kind of blew our practice wide open. And what I thought the ceiling was is nowhere near the ceiling. It's things have just we've been breaking records left, right, and center. So and consistently. So it's the handbrake kind of came off. But if you want to do the work, and you do have to dig deep, there's no doubt about that. And I think for those people that are in practice a long time, and just because I don't think we're ever satisfied, or you ever get to a point that you're just you're done. Completely fulfilled. There's always something next. And it's just that there's the barriers that we put up are the ones that are holding us back. And it's just keep looking for who's that person that's going to help you, or what's that thing that's going to change your mindset. It's definitely all in our head, But if you keep doing what you're currently doing, you're going to get what you always got.
Right. And John, I think you'd said this, but we see this so much, and we hear this all the time, is that chiropractors beat themselves up because they go, especially if they've been in practice for a while, they go like, I can't believe I've been in practice this long and I haven't got it figured out. And then they kind of beat themselves up. Did you have those feelings a little bit?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I'd be very hard on myself anyway. I think that's just it's kind of nearly how I've always been. So I that self-talk, the self-talk, I'm definitely kinder to myself now. I think that self-talk can be really kind of debilitating, or really, I wouldn't talk to anybody the way I talk to myself in my head sometimes. Totally. And even just being aware of that and being kinder to myself. And it does take some, it just takes some of the pressure off. But I think we all, I think we all kind of are hard on ourselves purely because I knew deep down I can do better. And that's what I was striving for, finding out what that better was. Because I knew that, I was settling for the way things were, and that didn't sit with me well at all. Right. But when you're not getting, when you don't know the question to ask that's going to give you the correct answer, you're stuck, and that's where kind of in terms of mentors or your programs or you guys really, really kind of helped me shine a light on things that I didn't even know existed.
All right, man. All right, my man. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And again, that's we appreciate you kind of, becoming that's part of the vulnerability, talking about some of the challenges you overcame. And we're super happy to see that you guys are thriving now. So thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Well, it's a pleasure, Lon, and thank you for all your help. Honestly, yourself and Brandi have just been amazing.
Oh, and I also have to thank you because you sent us some whiskey and so I'm on this new low insulin diet. So I'll have it on my cheat day. So tomorrow will be our celebration day. So I'll be able to try my Irish whiskey for the first time tomorrow.
Brilliant. Enjoy it.
Thank you so much. And everyone else out there, I hope you got a lot out of this because I think when we start working with people and they get the most results, again, I think Tony Robbins talks about this all the time. It's really only about 20% is the mechanics and 80% of it is mindset or overcoming these obstacles. So I hope that you got some good stuff out of this podcast and that helps you get to the next level so you can continue to make that shift. Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you've received value from this episode, please share this with a fellow chiropractor and take some time to rate and review us on iTunes or wherever your favorite place is to listen to podcasts. If you're interested in learning more about our programs and events, please visit www.thevitalityshift.com or connect with me on Facebook. I would love to hear from you. So until next time, Dr. Don out.